You're listening to another great podcast in the MyMac Podcasting Network.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the show where we take a wander around the week in Apple news, reviews, technology, associated products, and all sorts of other things that catch our eye. This is another episode of the Essential Apple Podcast. Hello everybody and welcome to this edition. This week, Mark is off cycling, Nick's gone to visit his sister because it's her birthday, Donnie is busy doing something or other, so you would all quake in fear being left with just me, but no, I am joined by the inestimable Bob Levitas, Dr. Mac himself. So you don't have to put up with just me, you have Bob as well. Hello Bob, how are you? Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, and sorry for missing the last one.
Well, it's okay. That doesn't matter. We got by, you know. Time zone cock up. I think there. Never mind. No.
I think we should get rid of time zones. I think everything should be at the same time everywhere. Because I screw it up almost every time. When somebody from overseas makes an appointment with me, I have to triple check to make sure that I've got the time right. And even then I got it wrong last time.
Oh, well, never mind. It's
I'm
one of those
now.
things. And you are here now, and indeed you have picked the correct week by the look of it to turn up and help me out. So, let me see what's happened this week. Slackers everywhere lost their collective cool over a new Slack logo, which has been described as a variety of things, perhaps the kindest being 4 ducks. Some much ruder comments were made about it. Apple put some iPhone SEs on clearance for a mere $249, and they sold out almost immediately. What else has happened? Well, actually, not a huge amount, really. In big news, there was, let me see, DuckDuckGo put Apple Maps into their service, stopped using, or not stopped, they've added Apple Maps, is the truth, because before they were using a collection of different mapping sources, including OpenStreetMap. So now you can use Apple Maps with DuckDuckGo, which is a good thing, I think. But there you go. It's been a relatively quiet week. I guess it's sort of post-CES and pre-Mobile World Congress, isn't it? So there we go. But that doesn't matter because we can find plenty of things to talk about, can't we, Bob? One of which...
I'm sure.
I'm sure we will. And, of course... Well, as it happened, just earlier today, I was listening to you, Bob, talking to Brian on the Apple Context Machine, and you had a rather interesting thing. I mean, for a start, you were telling Brian, which I found fascinating, that you'd taken up woodwork and that you were getting into cabinet making.
Well, cabinet and furniture, yeah. I've always liked working with wood, and I've always tried to build things, but I never knew what I was doing. And so, I was able to, wield a hammer, and when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So I could build stuff, but it was crummy and not very appealing and not very long lasting usually because I didn't know what I was doing. So I decided to enroll in school again. So I'm I'm going to Austin Community College to learn woodworking, furniture making, cabinet making. And I'm having a blast. It's great. I like, it kind of reminds me of doing stuff on my Mac. I'm creating stuff with my hands, but instead of typing now, I'm actually, making things with my fingers. And I like that. I'm always was into making things. When I was little, I used to make models and build things and tear things apart. And so for me, it's just kind of I needed a hobby. I need something to do to stand up when I work. I sit, and if I sit too long, I get all stiff. So I kind of wanted to find something, a hobby maybe, that I could alternate sitting at my desk typing and standing and moving around doing something else. And woodworking fits the bill, and I like it. So I've been building stuff like crazy. I'm building a rolling cart for my kitchen today. Last week, I built a beautiful, I'll send you a picture of it. Brian was really impressed with this. It's a really pretty pecan and wenge, which is a dark wood striped cutting board. Here, I'll send you a picture in the notes in the
Excellent
chat thing. But yeah, I'm having a great time. And there's actually a very cool like interrelationship between using a computer and making things out of wood called CNC routing, which is the next thing I want to conquer. And that is computer controlled like carving. Basically, you put a piece of wood down and you send it instructions, and it carves the wood. It can actually, carve a logo into a table or carve a piece of sculpture repeatedly over and over, or just about anything that you can make out of wood, you can cut with a computer. And see, I have no talent to draw or paint, but I can paste and copy. And so being able to, take a logo and paste it into a piece of software and then have it cut out of a piece of wood, to me, is magic. I'm just so excited about this.
It's I have to say CNC routing is something that I always find fascinating. Especially to watch. You just it seems like magic, doesn't it? As the machine just sort of and something appears. It's
I love watching time lapses of them,
yes,
because it takes a long time. Some of these pieces take 10 hours to cut, but if you get the time lapse, you can just kind of.
It's sort of like 3D printing in reverse, really, isn't it?
It is. Well, 3D printing is additive, and this is subtractive.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's the inverse. It's kind of the inverse of 3D printing. Yeah. In 3D printing, you start with nothing and build it up from scratch layer by layer. And in this, you start with a block and tear it down layer by layer until you've got what you want.
Cut away at it until you reveal the inner object, as Michelangelo would have it.
It's really two approaches to the same problem.
Yeah.
Just one is subtractive, one is additive. But the deal is it's always 100% reproducible. If you make it from a piece of code, if you send it an instruction, the next time you send it that instruction, assuming everything is set up right, it'll come out exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's impossible to do by hand, by the way.
Obviously. Yeah, totally. Which is, which is why why we needed the Industrial Revolution to make, things like accurate cogs and gears and so on. Because there's no way to do it, but no accurate way to do it by hand, or at least not, reproducibly. So
no, and some of this stuff is completely impossible to do without machinery. I was in Germany and I saw them 3D modeling stuff for a Bugatti. There's actually parts in the Bugatti that are 3D modeled because even at $50,000 a part, it was cheaper than casting them. And then it turned out the part they needed had so many thin and intricate pieces that it couldn't be cast. It could only be 3D printed. So it's like they're making these brake calipers that would be impossible any other way to build. They're built out of magnesium and titanium and something else, some super strong alloys. But they look like spider webs. They've got really thin lines, and they're 40% lighter and like 100% more stable or sturdy than cast metal would have been if you could even have done it in cast metal, which you can't.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. I mean, it's like all of a sudden they're using 3D modeling to create things that were not possible at all before 3D printing.
Yeah. That's
it's very impressive. So I want to learn all this stuff. 3D printing, not so much, but routing. I love the idea that I can take a piece of wood and design something and have a machine cut it for me perfectly, rather than me sitting there on a lathe for 6 hours, spinning a piece of wood and then breaking it. Like a machine is less likely to cause waste than me. That's what I think.
Oh, I'm getting an echo from your speakers now, Bob.
Okay, hold on. So tell me if that's better, and if not, I'll plug in some headphones.
Let's have a sound. No, I can hear. I don't know how, but I was not hearing anything to start with, but now I am.
Hang on, the headphones are hanging right here. And I learned my lesson. I'm using the closed back headphones because the open back headphones don't do much.
No.
For microphones, they sound great, but all right, there we go. Yeah, the headphones really do. I mean, they're bulky and they're hot, and I kind of prefer not to wear them, but sometimes they're essential, like when I'm recording vocals.
Yeah. That was very weird because there was no echo at all to start with, and then all of a sudden it just appeared.
And I didn't move anything. I didn't touch. I didn't change any levels. I didn't like reorient the microphone or the Mac or the speakers. Nothing.
No, there we go. Never mind.
All right, we're good.
This is your cutting board I see here.
That's the one I made for my mom. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. Very nice. So, anyway, yeah, as obviously the 3D routing thing, but you were telling Brian, weren't you? Which I found really interesting, that you said you'd seen not actually a 3D, not a CNC router, but like a CNC plotter cutter.
A very inexpensive one. I was shocked. So I went to, here in the U.S., we have a chain of craft stores called Michael's. I don't know if you have them over there.
We don't, but I'm sure they have something similar.
Yeah, they sell, craft materials. So you can go in there and buy all kinds of paint and glitter and modeling materials and pens and just about anything you can think of for a craft, beads. So I went in there looking for some... what was I looking for? I was looking for some, I was going to build a clock, and they sell the clock kits, which is just the back of a clock and numbers.
Yeah.
You supply the material. So I was looking for one of those, and I see this thing called a Cricut, Cricut. I think it's called Cricut. Maybe it's Cricut, but it's a cutting machine, and they've got it on sale, and it's right, it's on an end cap and a big display. And I said to one of the salespeople, "What does that do?" Because it said works with Mac or PC. I'm like, what does that do? What can I do with that? I want one. What is it? She said, oh, that's a cutting machine. That will cut just about any material that's thin, fabric, vinyl, paper, cardboard, balsa wood, basswood, leather. Really? So that sounds to me like 2D CNC. I can't cut depth, but I can cut shape. I said, wow, how much are those? Oh, that one's $199. And the one that will do leather and everything else is, I think, $400, $300. But CNC machines, I think the cheapest I've seen that isn't a build it yourself is about $3,000. And that's a very small, somewhat limited home setup. The big ones are a lot. They cost a lot.
Yeah, what we got here.
So I'm thinking, wouldn't that be neat if I could cut stencils for spray painting things, which I do by hand, but it's a pain. It takes a long time to cut out a bunch of letters if that's what you're doing. Or a logo, for example. Like if I'm trying to inlay a logo, I need to make a frisket or a stencil. And this will let me cut them right from the original art. So I always take the art, put it into, I use Affinity Photo now. I used to use Photoshop, but I don't, because it cost $10 a month and I couldn't stand paying for it every month when there was Affinity Photo for $50 total. That's a British product, I believe.
Yep.
Affinity.
Affinity. Yeah, it's Affinity by Serif. Yes, Serif, who are a British company. They've been going around pretty much since, certainly sort of since the dawn of desktop publishing. We had Ashley on the show, actually, a little while ago. And they were very famous for producing, all their stuff was Windows. They had a big range of products called Plus. So there was Draw Plus, Page Plus, Web Plus, Photo Plus. Very, very good products, which they, sold inexpensively. And they very much thought it was time that they needed to, as I said, the code was beginning to creak, and they wanted to build a new modern code base. And so they decided to go Mac first, because they'd never really made a dent in the professional market, possibly because they, sold to Windows at budget prices originally. But yes, there's Affinity Photo, which obviously is a Photoshop competitor. There's Affinity Designer, which is an Illustrator competitor. And in beta, they have one called Affinity Publisher, which is a desktop
InDesign.
Yeah, and basically an InDesign competitor. So yeah, and they
I
sell
love
for about.
I got to tell you, I love Affinity Photo. I've been looking for something that would let me switch from Photoshop, which I've used for, I think, 20 some years. And I have muscle memory from like the 80s of
Yeah.
all those shortcuts and how to change tools. And so I needed something that kind of mimicked
Yeah.
a lot of those things. And I find that Affinity Photo, it works the way I expect it to. Most of the key commands are the same. Most of the menu items are where I expect them. And it works in a lot the same way as Photoshop, although I think it's faster. But other than that, it costs $50 instead of $10 a month.
Yep.
$50 like to own it forever.
Yep. That's it. $50 basically outright. And then so is the designer, and I'm probably guessing that the desktop publisher will be the same.
Probably.
So
and they've got a great iPad app. I'm not much of a iPad photo editor guy, but they've got a full-featured version of it that runs on your iPad.
They have a full-featured version of both the Photo and Designer on the iPad. That is true.
Right.
Which is, and they were pretty much the first people to get there with that. So there we go.
Well, they're very slick. If you're using Adobe stuff and you'd like not to pay by the month, you might want to check out Serif's products that are $50 each.
Yep, very much so. And I'm looking now at this page, this cry cut. I think it might be Cricket, because on the here they've got a little pair of sort of antenna on the C, and it's green. So I think maybe it's meant to be a Cricket. Anyway, versatile, powerful, revolutionary. Hundreds of materials with effortless precision with this Cricket Maker, which changes everything. Machine tools, craft on point with commercial grade tools. Yeah, lovely. And
I mean, it's amazing. I saw it at this like craft store, and I'm thinking, how could I not know about this already? It's a Mac thing. You hook it up to your Mac and send it files. So, you design on your computer. Why wouldn't I know about this? And then I realized they're marketing people. They were surprised to hear from a computer journalist. They were like, oh, well, we kind of like arts and craftsy. I think they were a little surprised that a tech journalist was interested in this, but it's funny. I've talked to a lot of people that know a lot about Macs, and none of them had heard of these machines. And when I describe it, they go, "Oh, I want that." So I'm going to write a review. Mine. They said they've got one coming. I guess it'll get here this week, next week. And they're setting me up with a 1-hour consultation with one of their designers to talk about some of the things, a video chat, so that he can show me some of the things I can do, and then, help me get started with my first project.
Well, at the moment I'm on their website, which is shopcricket.com. The machines themselves, the maker. There are other machines, by the way. There are some smaller ones, aren't there? Apparently, cheaper ones.
Yes.
But this one here, which I'm guessing is probably the sort of the main machine.
I think that's the top of the line there.
Yeah, the maker machine is currently on offer at $349.99, so $350, and it's available apparently in champagne, blue, or rose. There you go. And they have a maker machine plus essentials bundle, and that's currently at $400. So effectively, nearly $200 off the list price.
Yes, I mean, that to me is a really low price for this, because if you're a craft person and you're making something commercially, think of everything you see on Etsy. If it's anything that's, printed or cut, this might be able to give you a workflow that you could make a profit at it instead of losing money on every one you sell and trying to make it up in volume. And that's a Steve Jobs quote, by the way.
Yep, it is indeed. And you were saying on the thing as well that it doesn't only cut, does it? You can, because I'm figuring that this is in effect a sort of like a 2D plotter that uses various knives or whatever. Yeah,
knives instead of knives, or they've got these other things. Scoring wheels, so you can score material, you can mark material, you can use blades, and you can use pens. So it can actually do plotting also.
That, I have to say, is a very impressive machine for...
I know. I'm just so excited that I found this at a craft store, and I'm like the first tech guy to jump on it, as far as I can tell. I was looking for reviews in any publication I read, and I can't, I've never even seen it mentioned.
No, I've never, I guess we've all heard that, 3D printing machines are sort of available to the, for the home market if you want to make chess pieces and plastic dinosaurs, or as Brian said, to replace your missing Lego pieces. But no, I've never heard of something
such
like
a thing. I know. I'm very excited, and it looks like, from all the feedback I'm reading from people who are using these, it's different from anything that's ever been before. I hear there's other cutting machines that have been out, but this is supposed to be the most versatile, the most upgradable. You can change the blades out. There's like probably I don't know how many, but maybe a dozen different kinds of blades and scoring wheels and pens, and it's very versatile. For $400 you've got painting or drawing, cutting, and scoring fabric to cut fabric or to mark a pattern. So I don't know that much about that stuff, but I have to think if I can find 10 uses for this, and I can, most people could find 10 things they want to do craft wise that this would make easy work of.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to be able to draw. That's the problem for me. Is I have a lot of trouble with anything that requires a stencil or a template, because I have to cut it out myself if I'm gonna. I just don't know any other way. I have an X-Acto knife and a little pad on the table so I don't cut the table when I'm cutting it, and then I get a magnifying glass out, and because my eyes are old. What a pain. If I could just take the Apple logo, dump it in a file, and have it carved into a piece of wood, well, that would save me hours.
Yeah, that's
hours and hours and hours.
Fascinating.
Yes,
absolutely fascinating. And I know, obviously the listeners will know that you've written 80 books about Apple. You've done recently, obviously, I know you did Mac OS Mojave for Dummies.
Yes.
And you obviously, last time you were on, we were talking about working smarter for Mac users. Which
yes.
is, of course, at working smarter for MacUsers.com.
Yes.
Where you have your your video course, which I did, which is very good indeed.
Oh, thank you. I'm working on an update. In February we're going to introduce the 2019, I guess, supplement, which will have some Mojave stuff and some iOS 12 stuff that I think is well in the wheelhouse of working smarter, but wasn't in the original course. So there's a bunch of stuff, like the new screenshotting stuff, I think is really useful and good for productivity if you know how to use it. So I'm going to do a lesson on that. I got a bunch of stuff in Mojave and a few things in iOS 12. So I think it's going to be about a 1-hour course that'll be an add-on to the old course. So if you take it, after next month, you'll get that with it. And I think I'm going to give it to everybody that already took the course. Maybe sell it separately too.
Yep.
But I've already written it. I'm starting production Monday. I'm going to be shooting Monday. I've got lights and cameras all over the office.
Well, as I say, I did it. Well, what was it? 50. The main course is 50 videos? Is that? Am I right?
I think it's 73. 70 or 73 videos. It's about 5 hours of content.
Yeah, but it's all in small, digestible chunks. You don't have to sit
Yes,
there
I took a lot of pains to make sure no lesson ran more than about 10 minutes. Why? Because I have ADD and I can't sit still for more than 10 minutes. So if I can't sit still to record it, I'm sure you can't sit still to watch it. So I kept them all. I think almost every lesson is well under 10 minutes.
Yep. I did that.
Plus, they look great, by the way, on the phone or iPad.
Yes.
So that's the other thing I did was the platform I use, Thinkific, is optimized for all devices. So if you've got a web browser, it'll look good whatever you use, and that's great for me because I watch lessons in line. And I'll be at the grocery store. If there's a long line, I put in my AirPods and watch a lesson of something. I can learn something while I'm waiting in line. 5-minute lessons.
Yep, definitely. There you go.
That's my thing.
That's your thing. And John Nemo, who's not got a hardware store this week, people, because he's off traveling, having a little break. But but John Nemo, who we know likes to play the guitar, said I should ask you about your musical,
Well, I used to be in a
creativity.
band. I used to be in a band. Some of you may have seen me. It's called the Macworld All-Star Band. We played once a year.
All right, yes.
At Cirque du Mac, which was the party that Mac Observer used to throw back in the day when we had Macworld Expos. So we were the Macworld All-Star Band. We used to say, we're the band that only plays once a year, only rehearses once a year, whether we need it or not.
Because Brian, is Brian part of that? Because didn't Brian play the bass?
Yeah, Brian was one of our guitarists. Yes, and Chris Breen and Dave Hamilton and I don't want to leave anyone out. Chuck Latornos. Wait, we had two bass players. Who's the other bass player? Dwayne, of course. And who else? I think that's it. That's the whole band. Yeah. Oh, Paul Kent, lead guitar.
All right. Okay.
Can't forget Paul Kent, who was the manager of Macworld Expo and also one of my favorite guitarists.
Wow. There we go.
So that's one of the things I think he was talking about was, hey, did you know that we have a band? We're coming back. We're going to have a comeback tour one of these days.
Come back.
We hope. And then the other thing musically was Brian and I were talking the other day about how much I love Apple Music. I used to listen mostly to old music, so I didn't buy a lot of new music, but every once in a while I'd find something missing from my collection. So I'd say I was probably spending $20 a month on music in the past.
Yep.
Now I spend $15 a month for Apple Music, and my family gets it too. And now I have 50 million songs in my pocket.
Yeah.
And so, if I had bought those one by one, I'd never get there. And plus I'd be very broke. What I love, though, is whatever I can think of, I can just say, hey, S lady, play blah, blah, blah. And she plays it. As long as I speak clearly. And it's not something like a song that has, 40 million recordings of it, like play White Christmas.
Yeah, which
never get the version you want. Well, I've learned something. Okay, when you want her to play music, you should, if it's something that might be covered by someone else, you want to say the artist name. So you want to say, I want to hear Walk on the Ocean by Toad the Wet Sprocket, because you don't want to hear the cover. Or I want to hear Let It Be by the Beatles. I want to hear Yesterday by the Beatles, because otherwise, who knows? You could get any version of Yesterday. But it's so awesome to be able to think of an album. I was in the car the other day and I got a tickle in the back of my head. I guess they call them earworms. I got an earworm to hear Thick as a Brick, which is an old Jethro Tull song that's about 25 minutes long.
I know.
I don't know if I owned it, or I'm sure I owned it on vinyl. I probably owned it on CD, but I don't know that it was on my phone. I'm driving along and I just say to the S lady, hey, play Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull. Boom, comes on. Hey, play that new Beatle album. She doesn't know that. But if you say it right, if you say, please play the new Beatles White Album Super Deluxe Edition, she'll play all 107 tracks of it.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you can say shuffle, and she'll shuffle them. That's even more fun. But I just love this because there's so much old music that I don't have that I'd like to listen to, but I don't want to buy. Like most of it, I only want to probably hear once. So having Apple Music lets me, just whatever's in my head, I can hear instantly without having to search. I don't know where I've got probably, I don't have any vinyl left, but I have CDs somewhere in the house, somewhere, and I've got a CD player somewhere, maybe. So to listen to something for me would be involved, to say the least. If I hadn't ripped it and put it in my iTunes library, it would be hard. So having Apple Music, and my family loves it. My family are all of them, except my daughter. My daughter pays for Spotify. I said, why would you do that? They've got the same music libraries. They both have the same 50 million songs pretty much. Not exactly, but I'd say 99%. She said, I have 200 playlists in Spotify. I said, so that's worth $10 a month out of your own pocket? She's an adult daughter. I mean, she's not a kid. But she said, yeah, that's worth $10 a month. Because I said, I gave you the same thing, just you don't get the playlists. You have to recreate those. Oh, that's too much work. I'll pay $10 a month.
Well, there you go.
But the rest of my family love being able to just, think of something, say it, and hear it. It's almost space age, it's like the future.
Living in the future.
Yeah, and what I want is the neural connection where I just have to think of a song and it starts playing.
Well, you do realize that might not be as far away as you think, Bob. I came across a story the other week, which never actually made it into the show, but it was about brain interfaces. Because it's probably much further on than we get to hear, because not obviously at the moment the main people working on brain machine interfaces are people working on technology for people who are severely disabled, people be they quadriplegics or the blind, or people who are amputees, multiple amputees, and so on.
Right.
And it was a fascinating article.
Yeah,
showing...
I've read about it in the past and thought, someday they're just going to hook the computer right up to your brain. You're not going to have a mouse or a keyboard. You just think it and it'll get typed and printed. I believe that's the case. I mean, I believe we're going to see that. Maybe not in my lifetime, but I think we're not that far. I think you're right. I think we're like, 10, 20 years out from really being able to plug a computer right into the brainstem directly.
But some of these brain interfaces that and neural links they're working on, particularly for people who are severely disabled, are surprisingly efficient. And obviously anything that helps somebody who's be they paralyzed or an amputee or whatever is fantastic. But they are really coming on with this, the ability to plug the technology directly into these people's brains.
Yeah, so someday it'll come to us. I mean, that they're being the groundbreakers. They're the trailblazers, and then the technology will trickle down. Although I don't know, having something implanted in your brain just because it'll be cool, I think is questionable morally. I don't know if the critic oath might prevent them from implanting you if you're if you just want to be cool.
Yeah,
and have your computer connected to
I'm
your
sure
face.
I'm sure there would be people who would go for it, but I'm sure again with such technologies that they will go. Initially it will be people who are handicapped, who are disabled, who are for whom having a hole drilled in their skull and a piece of technology put in is a huge boon.
It's like, well, yeah, that's better than the alternative. Okay, do
it. But I'm pretty sure these things, they tend to gradually move out to, well, we'll just stick a few sticky, electrode pads on the back of your neck. And
pretty soon we'll have walk-in clinics where you can have your computer connected to your brain in 45 seconds.
Yep. And then the next thing, I guess, would be, Geordie LaForge style, the pads just touch your forehead and, you can pick up enough electric from there to divine what you're thinking.
And then we're going to need the VR headsets. So the whole thing is self-contained. It goes the circuit is from your brain to the glasses. It goes the brain to the CPU to the glasses. All self-contained and wearable.
Yeah, so
I'm looking forward to that. I hope that happens in my lifetime. That'd be cool. Although that if that does happen, you are likely to be called the glass hole.
Well,
that's what they call them.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure that within a few years, I'm pretty sure that AV glasses are going to become a big thing.
I agree. The augmented, I still see huge use for the augmented reality stuff. I haven't seen any good, really good use of it on an iPhone or anything yet, but I do believe I saw some demos in Germany of augmented reality stuff that for production that really was cool. It's like, wow, wouldn't that be great if you didn't have to touch anything to find this part number or to see how to put that in, or very cool stuff. So you're standing at your workstation, you don't know exactly how to install the part. It just shows up, floating in the air in front of your eyes. You ask it, you talk to it by voice and it responds by projecting stuff, in the glasses. Very cool.
Yeah. I very much do think that is going, and I think I mentioned last week there was a company that have brought out some AR glasses, which is retailing at about $1,000, which, the article seemed to think was expensive, and I thought, well, not really. I mean, you're paying that for your phone these days, so.
Yeah, the problem I think is most people aren't going to walk around with immersive glasses on their face all day.
No.
It's got to be something like, unobtrusive and then the user interface. I think when it happens, Apple will probably be the winner because they know how to do user interface. And I think for this to work, the user interface is going to have to be fantastic. Oh. Otherwise, it's just going to be a pain in the ass on your face.
Yeah. Yes. You have got to get it. It's got to be a kind of HUD that works, hasn't it?
Exactly. And it's got to stay out of your way when you don't need it.
Yeah.
But be easily recallable when you do. And I'm excited. I keep thinking next year or the year after we're going to see something really good in the augmented wearable space.
Yes, I think I'm thinking 2020 personally. Maybe 2021.
No, 2020 is perfect because that's perfect vision, isn't it? 2020.
Oh yeah. Oh, that is true. That would be a top year, wouldn't it, to release some?
That's kind of I don't know what that's called, but I like that.
Serendipity.
Serendipitous, right. 2020 is the year we're going to get full laser vision in our glasses.
Oh dear. So, what we were talking earlier about, obviously you're talking about Affinity Designer.
Yes.
There's another company we've had on here, Beelight Software, who produce a product called Swift Publisher.
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah,
and familiar with them.
Yes,
they also make the business card thing I use. Business card creator or
composer. Business card composer.
Yep.
And they do a live. They've launched a live home 3D thing for modelling your,
Is that on the Mac?
Yes.
Because I have it on my iPad.
Yes, it's available.
I didn't know that. I think it is available for the Mac too. Yeah,
yes. Yeah.
They make cool stuff. They're in, I think, Ukraine or. Ukraine. Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out of Ukraine lately. Yeah. That's where Magpie is. And Brian and I talked about SetApp saying, hey, this is one of those little overlooked things. We've all written about it, but how often can you write about something? Once a year, once every 2 years? So in the meantime, it's gotten way better and, nobody's talking about it. I love it. It's like Netflix for apps. Yeah. And I'm an app junkie. So having 100 apps I didn't have to pay for that I pay $10 a month to rent, 120, I think now. It's great. Like the other day, I wanted a flowchart thing. I wanted to do a flowchart and I don't have a flowchart program. And there were like 3 of them in SetApp. And I found one that looked pretty good. And there we went. Timeline. I wanted to do a timeline. Same thing. Mind map. I don't even know how to mind map, but I wanted to try a mind mapping tool. There was one in there.
There you go. Anyway,
I would say try that. Yeah. If you haven't already tried it, try it.
But Beelight have launched a public beta for a new product, which is called Amadine, which is a vector graphic design, similar to Illustrator / Designer. At the moment, it's a very early beta, but you can download it for free to play with, and obviously send feedback to Beelight. And you can find that at amadine.com, and that's AMADINE.com.
I don't do any real work in objects. I never used Illustrator when it was the big rage because I'm a pixel guy. And so that wouldn't have been on my radar at all. I never even heard of that Beelight thing.
Well, it's
I'm
new.
glad you mentioned it.
It's new. Based on the price of their other products, I suspect it will probably end up being about $25 or something like that. Yeah.
Cheap. Not expensive.
Probably. I don't, at the moment, looking at it, I don't think it's quite as aimed at the pro as Affinity Designer is, but it looks like it might make a very competent hobbyist.
Well, that might be a good thing, though, because I have a feeling if Designer is like Illustrator, it's over most people's heads until you wrap your brain around Bezier curving and stuff. I found Illustrator I found it much harder for me to get where I wanted to go than when I worked in pixels. Now, yes, it's scale independent. So if I create something with objects in Illustrator, I can make it any size and it won't look worse. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
But I know what size I'm going to work in. So usually I can just decide what size it's going to be, work in that size, and not have to worry about it.
Cool.
So I've never been much of a Illustrator kind of guy. But I've always respected artists that can, because that's really cool to be able to. Do you know Burt Monroy?
No, I don't think so.
He's an artist. You look him up on the internet and just look at some of his work, but he uses Photoshop with Illustrator to do some of the most amazing photorealistic painting I've ever seen done by a computer artist.
Mm.
And he's big on objects because some of his stuff is so huge. Like he does large scale printed pieces, like
Right.
10 feet tall by 30 feet wide.
Yeah.
So he's really kind of a master of using the two together to make sure that fine detail reproduces at any resolution and any size. Me, I always know exactly what I'm, where it's going to end up and what size, well, how many pixels I need across, really. That's all I care about. How many pixels?
Of course. Something like, Amidine, a vector graphic design package is very much what you'd want to be working with to get the best from your Cricut cutting machine.
Possibly.
Because I'm pretty sure that would probably rely on PostScript to send in.
I'm not sure. I think they might. I'm not positive. I don't know how it works. They've got their own software. They've got software for designing on your iPad and iPhone that I haven't played with yet because I don't have anywhere to test it with. I could play with the software, but I wouldn't know if I did it right.
No, exactly.
Because I can't output. But yeah, I don't know. I'm talking about this thing like I've already had it and it's awesome. I've never even touched one yet. I'm just so excited that I'm going to be able to do these things next week.
Yeah.
I'll keep you posted, though. And I promised Brian I would review it as fast as I could. So as soon as I get it, I'll try to put it through its paces and get a review out in the next few weeks.
Well, very good. We will keep our eyes peeled for that, Bob.
Awesome.
What else has been going on? So that was the Amidine beta, which I shall be taking part in. And apparently the popular video player VLC is going to get AirPlay support. Which would be nice for those who use the VLC video player, which is very popular indeed.
VLC, the VLC player on your iPhone or iPad will play all kinds of stuff that your iPhone or iPad won't play.
Yeah.
So having that means not having to transcode.
Yep.
So if you've got stuff that you're playing in VNC that you'd want to see on your big screen or listen to on your big speakers, I think you're in luck. I think you're going to be very happy here.
Yep. Let me see. This was on the report I've got here is Cult of Mac, but I'm sure you can probably find it else. The Video LAN team are saying about a month. But I think this report might be a week old, so very soon. Very soon.
Nice.
So AirPlay.
It's too late for me. I've already transcoded, but I could see why that would be a exciting thing for somebody that's got a big library of video.
Yep, that's true. DuckDuckGo, as we said earlier, has moved to Apple Maps for mapping-related queries. Unsurprising in some ways, I think, to be honest.
No, because Apple doesn't what do they call it? Commoditize your personal data from maps.
Yeah.
All it does is amalgamate it and use it for AI, but there's no identifiable stuff. So it fits with DuckDuckGo. It's like, okay, we're going to hand off your results to something that we know isn't tracking you either.
Yep. So that, I guess that was not a surprise. No details have been released of whatever the deal is between Apple and DuckDuckGo. I mean, DuckDuckGo, of course, is available as one of the defaults in Safari.
Right. So they have some relationship with Apple.
Yeah.
Because there's only a few choices there.
Yeah. I mean, there's Google. I think the choices are Google, DuckDuckGo, Bing. I don't know. The Wolfram Alpha might have been in there at one point. Anyway, there's
Yeah.
not a lot of choice. There's not a
No.
lot of choice. I've been using DuckDuckGo as my default pretty much. Well, I was using DuckDuckGo before Apple added it as a default, so I was really happy when they added it as a default. So that's good.
Yeah, I like DuckDuckGo.
Yep.
When I remember, I use it.
Well, set it as your default, Brian. Go into settings, make it the default, and there you go. You just type in the bar, and you'll get DuckDuckGo results, and Google will be none the wiser.
Yeah, but Google has all those great tools that I need. Everything else is linked into Google, so I don't want to change the default.
No.
But there are some times when I don't want my my search results tracked or associated with my name. I'm not going to say what, and it's not porn either. But
I can say is that where when you type in how do I build a nuclear bomb trigger?
Exactly, those kind of things are the things you want to ask on DuckDuckGo.
Exactly how do I build a low yield nuclear weapon?
Suitcase sized, right?
Yeah, exactly. Quite a lot of security stuff this week. I don't know if you're big on tracking the security stuff, Bob, but
No, I leave that to Dave Hamilton.
Yeah.
And I listen to his show and he talks about security, and I go, okay. It's not time yet. It's like, here's the thing. I'm not running. I run, what's it called? Malwarebytes.
Yep.
Manually occasionally to make sure that nothing has happened. But, it's been how many years we've had Mac OS 10? 12 years, 14 years. I don't even know. It's a lot of years.
Well,
and so far, because I practice safe computing, let's say, and don't download stuff from sites that have sketchy names, like Sam's Emporium of Downloadable Software or something like that. Sorry, Sam. And I don't open links in emails or texts that might lead to something malicious. I'm pretty hard to fool, and so I don't run anything like interactively. I don't run anything that's going to ping up and go, "Hey, you just got a virus," because I don't get viruses very often, and when I do, they're usually these inoffensive things that are like browser. What do you call it? Browser cruft.
Oh,
browser.
Hijackers.
And so I just don't, I've never found one that I'm happy running on my computer full time. Every time I've ever run that stuff, eventually I find it either chewing up all my CPU or reporting falsely and wasting my time. Something's always wrong. So I find that Apple does a pretty good job of protecting me from the outside world, and I do the rest myself without running security software. So I hear, on other podcasts, I hear people talk about it, and I think, it's not time yet for me. There may come a time when I have to, but I'm going to resist as long as I can, because every time I try it, I end up disappointed and mad. It's like, this is horrible.
To be fair, I have I have the Malwarebytes free, which I run once in a while just to make sure nothing's happened. I do personally. I use Avira free,
right,
which has never found anything, because like you, I do fairly safe practices. I do use Proton Mail, which is encrypted, secure mail. I use Proton VPN pretty much all the time to keep my ISP from knowing what I'm doing, or anybody else. We're very much, I'm very much into things like Ghostery, who we had on last week, and DuckDuckGo, and Proton, and people like that, which are sort of part of security layer rather than direct security, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, for those who aren't aware, there was a huge leak this week. Troy Hunt, the 773 million record collection #1 data breach, where 773 million records containing.
Wasn't that everybody in the world?
Well, apparently, it's there were. How many is that there he's got? I don't know. It's about 1 billion unique combinations of email addresses and passwords. which
2.6 billion.
Which he said after he'd cleaned the data up a bit and removed some rubbish and some approximately, yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, you're right.
772
after cleaning.
Yeah, and even said that he said
it.
it's not. But and 21 million unique passwords. Apparently gleaned from all over the place. It's all been sent to Have I Been Pwned? So there you go. But everybody should be aware that that's a vast number. They've been collected from all sorts of data breaches, it would appear. Not great news, I guess. And related to that, the computer scientist David Majorman, I assume that's how you pronounce it, wants to build a more ethical internet, according to CBC News. Not CBBC, that's a children's channel here in the UK. I'm pretty sure.
Wait a minute, a more ethical internet? Isn't that an oxymoron?
Yeah.
Ethical internet?
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting article. Multi-millionaire and computer scientist David Majorman believes he has met the enemy and it is us. Not necessarily flesh and blood us, but our cyber selves, unwitting employees of Facebook and Twitter, absently clicking gobs of personal information into the maw of social medias. That's an interesting read. He made his money working for Robert Mercer, who was co-owner of Cambridge Analytica, and a backer of Donald Trump. And as a result of this, he apparently is unhappy with the state of the internet, and he wishes to imagine a new kind of internet, one built to be safe and secure, where a constrained Facebook and Twitter would be worth a fraction of what they are today. Well, good luck to him, to be honest. Good luck to him on that. Not sure he'll get a lot of traction, because basically it involves asking people who have a lot of money to give some of it up and people who have a lot of power to give a lot of it up. And if there's one thing people don't tend to like letting go of, it's money and power, in my experience. So there we are. Of course, father of the internet, Tim Berners-Lee, has been trying the same with his Solid initiative, which is interesting. I have a Solid account, actually, but it's very geeky and at the moment doesn't really do anything. It's... I don't know. Maybe if Majorman and Tim Berners-Lee got together, they could,
They could figure out how to do the what did we call it? The
more ethical
internet.
Yeah. Well, the whole Solid thing, the concept behind it is sound, I think, but the trouble is, at the minute, if you go into it, it is like internet circa 1989. They're going to need some big players to be seriously on board for it to make any impact, I think. So there we go. And are you a mechanical keyboard man, Bob?
I am. I complain bitterly about all of Apple's flat, no bounce keyboards, and I used. I still use a mechanical keyboard, but I used Matthias keyboards for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Then I found something cheaper. That, no offense to Matthias, they make a nice keyboard, but they're pricey.
Yes, they're not cheap, are they?
Now I'm buying these Microsoft Ergonomic 4000 wired keyboards for about $35-40 at Amazon, and they're big behemoths with a split keyboard and a padded wrist rest. But the keys under your bigger fingers, like the T and the G and the H, are bigger because those fingers are bigger. And so it makes it really easy to hit the right key. Also very comfortable. It's angled just the right way for me. And finally, it's relatively quiet and the keys have the exact right amount of bounce. If you're a writer or a typist, you know what I mean by bounce.
Yep.
Got to have the right tactile feedback or you can't type fast enough. Also, some keyboards choke when I type fast. I can type about, when I'm in the zone, 60, 70 words a minute, and some of those flat keyboards don't keep up. And I can't tell if I've registered a key. With this, I always know. It doesn't click, but I feel it. And so, I type just much faster on a mechanical keyboard. I always recommend to people who use a laptop on their desk that they consider adding a keyboard that's more suited to their hands than whatever's crammed into their little laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Because, laptop, you've got constraints. There's other stuff that's got to go into it. And so the keys can't be bigger than a certain size. And if your fingers are rather large, I'm a big guy. My fingers are kind of large. It's nice to have a little extra space for the bigger of those digits.
Yeah. Well, we've got a worth of chirp here from Mac Jim in the Slack room, which is the Keychron K1 mechanical keyboard, which is available for Windows or Macintosh. Comes in at 87 key or 104 key, with prices ranging from $74 up to $94. So there we go. So basically,
that's still pretty reasonable. I think the Matthias are more than that.
Yeah, I think the Matthias is sort of $120, $130, aren't they?
Even more, I think. Maybe. Okay.
Maybe. Something. I don't know precisely, but I know that, I know they make very nice keyboards. This is the K1. It's an ultra slim wireless mechanical keyboard with self-contained switches for easier typing. It's only 18 millimeters thick. Looks like it's it's available as they say, an 87 or 104. It comes with Mac function keys, a dedicated screenshot key, and so on, a dedicated Siri key. If you're into that sort of thing, it might be worth looking at. Probably not for you, Bob, I would say. It looks pretty compact, which is, But I have to say, from my point of view, it's the keys are standing proud on the surface, which is, nice in some ways, but there's no, it's almost like a keyboard with no body. Not sure I'm keen on that personally, but there we go. But
worth those guitars that are neck only, the portable guitars.
Yeah,
they don't look like a guitar; they just kind of look like the neck and the key and the tuners.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's do that.
But
okay.
It's again, it's I'm sure it's probably a very nice keyboard, and if you're into mechanical keyboards, it might be very much your thing. So
absolutely. And by the way, the keyboard that I like, which I'm going to send you a link to in a second, is huge. If you don't have a lot of desk space, it's not going to.
Oh yes, I'm familiar with the
Microsoft. It reminds me of the old Battleship Saratoga that the Apple used to make. The Apple extended keyboard. Although this is more ergonomic, but size-wise, it takes up half your desk.
Yes, because that I had back in the day the Apple extended keyboard 2 with mechanical switches, which was indeed a lovely, lovely keyboard. But by God, it was big. And yes,
it looked like an aircraft carrier.
It did look like an aircraft carrier. Yes.
Yeah.
So and that took up a lot of desk space. I was sorry to lose its keys, but it was a big.
I bought an ADB to USB adapter and kept using mine until it finally. In fact, I think I probably bought one after they were out of production and kept using. I used it for probably 5 or 6 years after they went out of production and stopped being supported on the Mac. Because the great key switches, and it was just my fingers were used to it. And Matthias came out with keyboards that were really similar. They felt really similar to that, but as long as I could get the old big Apple ones, I was happy. They were a fraction of the price. Mm-hmm. I feel bad for Matthias because they make great keyboards. If you're really a keyboard aficionado, you probably want to spend the money on that. I'm not that much of an aficionado, and I'm very rough on keyboards. So I go through at least one a year. It's like I bang on them hard. I type hard, and I play games. And between all that, my keyboards rarely last much more than a year or two.
Take a beating.
Yeah, so I've got, at least I'm looking in my cupboard. I've got one right now in spare. I keep ordering these Microsoft keyboards. Like when I break one, I order another one as a spare because I have one here. And I'm afraid they're going out of production is what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid they're going to if they've been making them for like 15, 20 years, same exact thing.
They've been going a long time, haven't they?
But I'm afraid they're going to go out of production, and when they do, I will buy like 3 or 4 more and put them on my shelf, and that'll be a lifetime supply. It's my favorite. I mean, I try keyboards all the time. I'm in the enviable position of when a new keyboard comes out, I can say to the vendor, hey, I write about this stuff a lot. I want to try your keyboard. So I get to try all the keyboards. And I haven't written about them lately because nothing, the one I like is old news and nothing else has come close. So
interesting. Actually, here, I'm just looking on Amazon at the Matthias, the wired aluminium keyboard for the Mac UK retails at £65.
Hold on a second, Calc. I'm going to ask, what's her name? I don't want to say her name because then everybody listening will go ding. But we're going to convert how many pounds?
What was that one? That one was about £65.
65. Convert currency. Convert. Pounds are different from euros, aren't they?
They are indeed.
So those would be British pounds to US dollars. Convert. That's $83.68 as of this very moment.
Mm-hmm. And the aluminium keyboard in space grey is basically £100.
£100. Converted to currency that people here will understand. Convert $128.
Yeah.
So if it's £100, then the dollar is worth 28% more right now.
Yep. So there we go. So actually,
like time zones, that always confuses me.
Yeah. Well, based on that price, it's perhaps not as expensive as they used to be. Anyway.
No, I think they've come down. I think they were like $150 before, but that was that full size battleship Saratoga size or aircraft carrier size.
Anyway, here we go. There we are. Because I know Brian's talking about keyboards. Brian is big on doesn't he have he has like a cyberpunk keyboard, doesn't he? Or is it steampunk?
Does.
Steampunk.
Yes, I think he does.
He has one with big clattery keys, but it's got like round keys, like an old typewriter.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. There's a store in one of our shopping malls that's like got betas of hardware products. I don't know. I think it might be called Beta, but they had that, and I looked at it and I thought that's interesting. So I wrote down the manufacturer's name and I came home and looked it up, and I sent them a request to review it, and I never heard from them. So.
Oh.
But it is. It's got regular like old typewriter key type circular keys, and they are actually on like a thing. They depress and click kind of.
Yeah, they're on the
it's clackety.
Clacketies on the cherry switches. I think the sprung mechanicals.
He likes that.
Yeah, he also.
I like the quiet ones. I like the bounce of the old Alps ones or Cherry ones, but I like the quietness of the ones Microsoft's using, whatever they are.
Yeah,
because they are very quiet.
Yeah, I have to admit, I think if I went back to a mechanical keyboard, I would want one of the ones that is quiet, not clickety clackety. I must admit.
Well, certainly if you do podcasting or, talk on the phone, you want the quieter one. Otherwise, you can always tell when someone's typing. Like I can type when I'm on a podcast, and if I don't bang the keys too hard, you won't know. But with a lot of my keyboards, you'd know no matter what I did. You just for sure you'd hear it.
Yeah. And what have we got here? We've got one more, I guess. There's just a snippet, which is Louis Vuitton has released some earbuds which will cost you apparently $1,000.
That's $299 for the earphones and $700 for the LVs.
That is correct. I was going to say they are apparently Master and Dynamics MW07 earbuds, which retail for about $300. And,
what a good guess, huh?
And the rest of it is because he's put a Louis Vuitton LV logo on it. So there we go. If you want to show that you've got money to burn, you can buy some Louis Vuitton earbuds. There we are. And I think that's probably about it. Oh, no, one more security story. Apparently, two-factor authentication codes can be phished by a new penetration testing tool. And this was a story on Naked Security, which is Sophos to which is basically pointing out, yes, that two-factor authentication by SMS is not really very secure at all. So
But how about by iMessage? I wonder.
iMessage.
I wonder, because iMessage is encrypted from end to end.
Yes.
So if it sends you your second factor code by iMessage, not SMS, I think it's okay. Because Apple sends it through iMessage. If Apple's sending you a TFA for any of those apps, they come as iMessages, not SMS. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But if they come as iMessages, can this thing crack them? I would be surprised if it could.
Not sure. What does it say here? With every new hack, it becomes clearer that older forms of two-factor authentication are no longer the reassuring security protection they once were. A tool called Modliszka, the Polish for Mantis, is capable of automating the phishing of one-time passcodes sent by SMS or generated using authentication apps. Well, we won't go into the technicalities of it, but the link is in the show notes. As we mentioned last week, yet again, time to start thinking about, security such as, hardware keys, two-factor authentication keys, and so on. There's always somebody trying to spoil it for the rest of us, Bob, isn't there?
Yes. I think they should get the death penalty. And then they should televise it as a pay-per-view event.
Oh dear. Right.
I'm not cynical, am I?
No,
I'm not cynical.
No, not at all. No, we're not, we're not ground down, are we? There we go. All right, well, Bob.
Or vindictive.
No, we're not vindictive at all. Not at all. Right then.
We're mellow.
We are. So
are we done?
I think we'd probably say that's enough to fill up a show, Bob. So thank you for coming on the show. I will just mention our giveaways and offers, and that is last week we had Pete from Ghostery, and they gifted us with 10 Ghostery swag bags. I'm holding this open for a while for people to get their names in, and then I will pull 10 out of the hat. So email essentialapple@sudomail.com. That's SUDO mail.com with your postal address and, of course, your T-shirt size. You have to include both, or we won't be able to send you one by email. Also, Skylum, we still have a coupon code for Luminar and or Aurora HD 2019. If you use the coupon code Essential Apple at the checkout, that's all one word, by the way, you will get a $10 discount.
And I recommend you go try Luminar and or Aurora. They both have free trials you can download.
They do
either
indeed.
of them or both of them can fix a photo that's not quite right faster than almost anything else I know. I just wrote a review last week or a couple weeks ago of Luminar. It's impressive. It's really impressive. You take a picture that's just okay, and in one click, it's like, the magic wand thing in photos.
Yeah.
You click that and you go, did anything happen? Oh, it's a little better. Maybe. I'm squinting. No. So this is like the magic wand on steroids. It's a magic wand that works. You can see it work.
It is absolutely.
And you can amp it up with a slider. If it's not intense enough yet, just slide the slider, one slider. It's just great.
It's fantastic.
It shows you the before and after. If I'm just doing photo editing where I'm just trying to adjust a picture to make it look good, that's what I turn to. I mean, I can do the same thing in Affinity Photo, but it means remembering like 13 different controls and filters and things to apply and what order to put them in. It's just brilliant. It is brilliant.
It is amazing.
The only thing it doesn't do is add text. And if it added text, I might just use it all the time. If I could do layers and text, I might just, be able to get away with using that instead of a real photo app. But it's awesome. It is really shocking. You know what else is really good while we're on the subject? Photo Lemur.
Oh, yes. Yep.
That one's the same kind of thing, but no controls at all. That one is really push here dummy.
Yeah.
So with Luminar, you've got some controls. If you're not happy with the way it turned out, you can change things, and there's lots of them, and you can do a lot of tinkering. With Photo Lemur, you just drag a photo on it and say, make this better, and it does.
Yeah, Photo Lemur
I've seen very few pictures that I dragged on it that didn't come out at least a little better, and usually noticeably better without doing anything. Like literally click once.
Yep, it's
check them out. They all of them have free downloadable demos. If you take a lot of pictures, something like that is really a worthwhile investment, really worth having.
It is. And Luminar, of course, now the Luminar 3 comes with photo libraries. So it's now a full-blown Lightroom competitor with Alex. When Alex was on, as he said, it's not quite there yet. There are some features they haven't implemented yet. There are some things they need to but all if you buy Luminar, all of the updates until at least the end of 2019 you will get for free. So
yes, and they've got an aggressive roadmap for things that they're going to add, and also, what was I going to say? I forgot. It escaped me, but they're definitely worth checking out if you take a lot of pictures, either Aurora or Luminar or Photo Lemur.
Yep.
I'm not sure if Photo Lemur is from them. Also, they are selling it. Well, they're selling it, but I think it might be still from. Wasn't it from another company when it first came out?
It's
I'm not positive.
It's Alex explained that the Photo Lemur is by one of the guys who founded Skylum.
Okay.
And so they use the same technology, and
I kind of thought so.
They've kind of merged. So. They've kind of got, they kind of separated and went their own ways, and now they've come back together. I think is the.
I get it. Okay, because Photo Lemur has a lot of the. It feels like Luminar without any controls.
It is basically very much so.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, when we had Alex on, he explained that the AI behind Photo Lemur is also very similar, and what is exploited by Luminar and Aurora HD. Luminar is very much kind of Photo Lemur with a whole another layer of adjustability.
Control. Yeah. Right. I like it. I Photo Lemurs when I'm really in a hurry. I'll just drag something on Photo Lemur and cross my fingers and say, it's going to be fine. It's only going to take 2 seconds. When I have time to tinker, I put it in a Luminar and play with it.
And the other thing is Luminar of creating these things they call looks, don't they? Which are like...
yes.
Like
presets.
Presets. They're bunches of presets, many of which you can download for free from them. So
yes.
They're
kind of cool because you can just click once and say, okay, that I like the look of that, because it changes a bunch of parameters all at once. And then if you love something after you've tweaked it, you can save it as your own look, which lets you apply it later in the future. I remember what I was going to say about their galleries. The thing that I miss is they don't read your photos library. Right. So you can't point it at the photos library and have it manage those, and that's where all my photos live right now. Now, I'm not sure I have to have them live there, but I think I do because of iCloud.
Right.
It's like I don't want to have to manage them. So I think if Luminar could address that, if I could use Luminar directly with all the 60,000 photos that are in my photos library, that would be awesome. Then I'd use it all the time. I'd probably never use photos again.
No, well, I'm sure that's probably Alex and his team have probably got that somewhere on their list of things they'd like to do. I guess they probably have to get Apple to give them consent to do that.
I don't know. I'm wondering because the browser, the media browser window, that's built into Mac OS X, which means that they can see that stuff. I don't know if they can manipulate it, but they could see it, and certainly they could see it to open it. It's saving it back into that database that I don't know. I don't know that you might have to get Apple's permission. But you're in your like mail, and you want to send somebody a picture. You can open the photo browser, which browses your photos library and lets you choose. So the part of the API is already there. I just don't know if you can do round trip. I would think you can though, because you can open. From Photos, you can open another program as your graphics editor, and it'll save it back. And in fact, you could choose Luminar to do that.
Yes, you can. You can do it that way because you can
But that's one more step. See,
Yeah,
I'd like to get photos out of the equation because I don't really care for photos. Editing tools have gotten better, but they're not my favorites. I mean, if I'm going to edit a photo, usually I'm going to try to do it in Luminar or Affinity or something where I have more control.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you on that. To be honest, I don't dislike
I'll put in
photos.
a vote. I'm going to put in a vote with the Luminar folks to get that happening. Get it so that I can read my photos library and get rid of Photos app.
Yep, there you go. Well, Alex and his team are always, always available.
They're great. They're great.
They're a great crew. Right. Well, I think that probably is enough for a show, Bob. So, if you would like to once again promote your wares,
go to workingsmarterformacusers.com and sign up for the mailing list, the Insiders mailing list, and you'll get some free goodies, and you will hear about some exciting new products for next month in February. Also, I noticed that you've got Ghostery swag bags. I'm going to gift you with something too. So I'm going to gift you with a free tuition to my course, which would be worth $500, and also a free copy of the book, Working Smarter for Mac Users, $24.95 retail value. You can give those away next week, but let me know who wins, and I will get them their free stuff via email. Okay, Bob.
Thank you very much indeed. What I will say then in that case is, you heard it here. Bob has offered some giveaways. If you're interested in those, email the show on essentialaapple@sudomail.com with the subject Dr. Mac, and we'll give that a couple of weeks, and then we will pull somebody out of the hat, and I'll let Bob know. So there we go.
Awesome.
That's great. That's probably about it. I am on the Twitter as @Serenak, and that's SERENAK. The show is Essential Apple. All our stuff is on the website at essentialapple.com. And also we put the shows up at mymac.com, and you can find us on Spotify, you can find us on SoundCloud, you can find us on YouTube, and pretty much anyone who will take our tosh, well, we give it to them whether they like it or not. There we go. So all that's left to do really is to say thank you very much for coming on, Bob. It's been a pleasure, and we'll speak to you again, I don't know, next time.
Anytime.
Okay.
You know my number. Anytime.
I do indeed. All right.
All right.
Fabulous.
Talk to you soon. Take care. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to the Essential Apple podcast, and I'd like to say if you enjoy the show and would like to support us, feel free to go over to the website essentialapple.com, and you will find links to both Patreon and the Pinecast Tips Jar, where you can make a donation towards the costs of the show, or even if you're really keen, you could set up a recurring payment. And thank you very, very much to all the people who already do support us. We really do appreciate you very much indeed. This show is, of course, part of the My Mac podcasting network, where you can find a variety of other shows like the My Mac podcast with Guy and Gaz, the G-Men, Tech Fan with Tim and David, the Nintendo Club podcast, the geekiest show ever, the Three Geeky Ladies, Bart Bouchot's and his wonderful Let's Talk Apple, and possibly some more that I've forgotten. So why not go over to mymac.com, take a look at the available podcasts, and take a listen.
Everybody, please stand by. And, well, we'll be right back.
And welcome everyone back to the mymac.com podcast.
All right, so let's carry on. But
I'm still laughing about something that happened just before we started recording, and we're going to talk about that right now.
I don't know if you heard, Guy, but Sal's going. Did you know that?
Yeah, I heard that. He's leaving Apple. It's a tragedy for everybody.
Oh dear, this is not going well, is it? We are so childish.
We are.
Really are.
It's the G-Men on the MyMac.com podcast.
This has been the Essential Apple Podcast. Goodbye and thank you for listening.